Welcome to The Explainer. We're jumping right into something absolutely massive today. We are looking at a literal game changer in artificial intelligence called UniAR. It's a brand new framework that completely upends how AI processes, understands, and creates images. If you've been tracking the breakneck speed of multimodal models lately, you know we've slammed into some pretty frustrating roadblocks. Well, today, we're going to see exactly how those roadblocks are getting completely demolished. To really grasp why this is such a big deal, I want you to think about a slightly weird scenario. Can an AI truly understand its own art without needing a translator? Imagine you have an unbelievably talented artist. They paint these magnificent, sweeping landscapes in French, but their brain actually only processes thoughts in English. So every single time they finish a painting, they literally have to hire a translator just to understand the thing they just created themselves. Sounds totally absurd, right? Well, surprisingly, that's exactly how our most advanced multimodal models operate right now. They use two entirely separate systems, one for seeing and another for drawing. Here's the roadmap for today. First, we'll cover the tokenizer problem. Second, we'll meet the solution, UniAR. Third, we'll take a deep dive into the UniAR framework itself. Fourth, we'll look at some breathtaking generation and editing. And finally, we'll discuss the future of unified AI. Number 1. The tokenizer problem. Let's pin down the exact flaw holding current systems back. Okay, let's dive into this. There's a fundamental tug-of-war happening inside AI visual representation right now. When an AI tries to quote-unquote understand an image, it needs high-level semantics. It needs the big picture, the overarching meaning. But when it goes to generate an image, it suddenly needs incredibly low-level, high-frequency details. We're talking exact pixels, textures, lighting. Because these two tasks are just fundamentally at odds with each other, current models are forced to rely on two disparate visual tokenizers. They literally split the AI's representation space into two separate brains. So when the AI generates an image, it has to pass it through a whole secondary encoder just to figure out what it just drew. The ultimate goal, though? A single system where understanding and generation share the exact same context. One brain for everything. Which brings us to number 2. Meet UniAR, the solution. Say hello to UniAR, which stands for Unified Autoregressive Framework. The researchers behind this have successfully smashed understanding, generation, and editing together using a single shared visual tokenizer. They bridged that annoying gap between high-level meaning and low-level detail, and they did it using something called bitwise quantization, paired with a parallel bitwise prediction mechanism to keep everything running incredibly fast. It effectively takes those two separate, clunky brains and merges them into one highly efficient, unified mind. Number 3, deep dive the UniAR framework. Let's pop the hood and see exactly how this single brain magic actually works. This is the absolute heart of the architecture, and it's brilliant in its elegance. If we break it down into its 3 main moving parts, starting from the input phase, you have the unified visual tokenizer. It takes an incoming image and runs it through a vision encoder with multi-level feature fusion. That's a fancy way of saying it successfully captures both the deep, abstract meaning and the tiny, fine details all at once. Then it uses a unique bitwise quantization scheme to convert that image into discrete binary visual tokens. Moving to the core of the system, you have the unified autoregressive model. This is a massive language model backbone that treats those visual tokens exactly like it treats text tokens. It's just predicting the next token in the sequence. But the really clever part is how it groups and predicts these bits simultaneously, which is a massive efficiency boost we'll talk about in a second. Finally, at the output phase, you have the visual decoder, which is built on diffusion transformers, or DIT. It simply takes those discrete visual tokens and translates them beautifully back into high-fidelity images. Just to make sure we've got this locked in, let's walk through those 3 exact steps again. Step 1, the unified visual tokenizer bridges the gap, handling both generation and understanding. Step 2, the unified autoregressive model predicts the next tokens, and it genuinely doesn't care whether they are text or visual. Step 3, the DIT-based visual decoder translates those predictions into beautiful, high-res outputs. And here's an absolutely crucial takeaway. The decoders, for both text and visual, are only required during inference. They aren't needed during the core pre-training of the autoregressive model. Now, I really want to unpack some of that dense, technical jargon from the first step. Specifically, lookup-free bitwise quantization, or BSQ. In older models, when AI tried to turn an image into discrete tokens, it had to use an explicit codebook. Think of it like a visual dictionary with a strict, fixed number of words. You can imagine how severely that limits your vocabulary, right? BSQ just completely throws that limited codebook out the window. Instead, it maps visual features directly to discrete binary vectors, just straight strings of ones and zeros. By doing this, it manages to preserve both the overarching meaning and the gritty, low-level details at the exact same time. So the crucial point is what this actually does to the model's vocabulary. Because they use a 64-bit vector, the theoretical vocabulary size scales exponentially to 2 to the power of 64. That is a mind-bendingly huge number of unique visual codes. It gives the AI an unbelievably rich, practically infinite visual vocabulary, and it does it at almost zero additional computational cost. It's frankly genius. Next up, how does that central brain, the autoregressive model, handle all those billions of bits without crashing? It uses parallel bitwise prediction. Instead of painfully predicting a massive string of ones and zeros one at a time, it predicts multi-level visual binary vectors simultaneously. It grabs them and groups these predictions within a 2x2 spatial grid. By tackling them in parallel like this, it drastically reduces the overall length of the visual sequence the AI actually has to process, which massively accelerates the generation speed. And how much does it accelerate it? Well, this parallel grouping mechanism achieves an unbelievable 32 times visual compression ratio during prediction. To put that into perspective, to generate a massive 1024 by 1024 high-resolution image, the model only needs to predict 256 visual tokens. That is so compact and so efficient, it's almost hard to believe. Number 4, breathtaking generation and editing. Enough of the theory, let's actually look at the visual proof. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer power of UniAR. We're talking about a highly detailed, realistic bear sitting in water, reconstructed entirely from those discrete ones and zeros via the DIT decoder. Just think about the complex lighting on the fur, the reflections and intricate ripples on the water, the natural depth of field blurring the background. It is virtually indistinguishable from a high-end photograph. This absolutely proves that a single tokenizer can successfully preserve all the low-level details you need for state-of-the-art generation. Now let's talk about something AI historically struggles with: text rendering and complex instructions. Consider a complex rendering, like packaging for a feral smoked porter beer. UniAR can render the text flawlessly, integrating it perfectly into the 3D spatial environment of the box. It follows strict instructions without hallucinating gibberish text. In fact, on benchmark tests like UniAR, UniAR didn't just do well, it actually surpassed leading proprietary models in precise instruction following, spatial relationships, and text rendering. And because understanding and generation share the exact same context space, UniAR is an absolute beast at versatile image editing. Take an example where the model is simply instructed to change a goat into a rabbit within a landscape. It seamlessly transforms the animal, getting the complex anatomy of the rabbit perfectly right. But critically, and this is the amazing part, it completely respects the original environment. The rocks, the tiny yellow flowers, the background depth, everything else remains totally untouched. It understands what to change and what to leave alone. Let's look at another fantastic editing capability. Imagine a prompt simply asking to change the color of a specific textured object, like a red corduroy dragon toy, to blue. UniAR understands exactly what the object is, what the attribute blue actually means, and precisely how to apply it. It meticulously binds the color attribute to the dragon's complex texture without bleeding a single drop of blue into the carpet underneath it or messing up the green wings. That kind of precision requires incredibly deep semantic understanding paired directly with pixel-perfect generation. Finally, number 5, the future of unified AI. What does all of this actually mean for the road ahead? There's a quote directly from the researcher's paper that really hits the nail on the head. UniAR, enabling a shared context in which the model can directly interpret its own generated visual tokens without additional re-encoding. That is the death of the dual brain inefficiency right there. The AI officially no longer needs a translator to understand its own art. And by fully unifying this representation space, something truly incredible happens. The model develops what we call emerging properties. These are capabilities it wasn't even explicitly programmed to do. UniAR becomes capable of interleaves generation and understanding. You can give it a super vague prompt, have it generate an image, and then immediately ask it a tricky follow-up question about a tiny, fine-grained detail inside the very image it just created. Because it shares the exact same context space, it can instantly analyze what it just drew, without needing to pass the image back through some separate visual encoder. It just intuitively knows. This is, without a doubt, a monumental step toward true artificial general intelligence in the multimodal space. And it leaves us with one incredibly thrilling question to ponder. If AI now possesses a single, unified mind to seamlessly see, understand, and create, all in the exact same breath, what unimaginable realities will it construct next? Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive today. Keep learning, keep exploring, and I'll see you in the next explainer.